Hi, everyone. Welcome to Aurelian Coaching Weekly. I'm Nicole Littman. Thanks for joining this week. So today I want to talk about goal setting. Now, I've talked about goal setting before, but after recently coaching a number of people through goal setting and goal assessment, I want to bring some of that to my followers here and let a lot of other people in on a couple of secrets and tips that I've provided to my clients that I think would serve you guys as well. So the first thing that I want to point out is, and I've talked a little bit about this before, it's that goal setting should be done within the context of a larger vision, okay? So don't just set a bunch of goals and then, populate your calendar and set plans, and all of that is fine. It's fine as long as those goals are aligned with a larger vision. Now, I typically call this a desired outcome or desired conditions. You want to think about what are the characteristics or the conditions of my work life, my career, my home life, my family that I'm trying to get to, and then make sure your goals, your actual SMART goals, if that's what you use, are aligned to that vision. So I'm going to give a couple of examples so that you guys know the difference between goals and desired conditions. So a lot of people have weight loss goals. This is pretty typical in America, right? So I want to lose 50 pounds this year. And, I've come across people who are really disappointed and frustrated that they're not losing the 50 pounds. Okay, so when I ask, well, what is your desired condition around this issue, right? What is your overarching vision? What are the characteristics of your life that you want to achieve? One person said, well, it's really about being healthy and fit. And I said, okay, well, perhaps losing 50 pounds gets you there. Perhaps, right? But maybe there are other things that you can set goals around that have to do with health, right? So maybe we talk about the type of food that you're consuming rather than just the sheer amount, right? Or increasing activity, to help support being fit, and not necessarily like hitting the gym every 3 weeks. Like I'm just presenting some alternatives in terms of goals that will help support an overarching vision. Sometimes it's not even about being healthy and fit. Sometimes people are like, I just want to look good. I really, really want to look good. And they believe that they will not look good unless they lose that 50 pounds. And maybe, but if you're not losing the 50 pounds, and year after year after year, you're sort of like, well, I didn't lose the 50 pounds this year, so I'm going to try it again next year, right? I don't know how much money a person can spend on weight loss programs and detox and gym memberships and like all this stuff, right? You can, as an alternative, take all of that money that year and go to a personal stylist who will coach you on what cuts, what colors, what fabrics would look really good on you, right? And spend a little bit to expand your wardrobe. Your confidence shoots way up. You feel good in the clothes, and you're hitting your desired condition around your life, right? You feel good, you look good. I'm not saying that all the other goals that people are creating for themselves are not valid. I'm just putting a question mark on that process and jumping to goals and being frustrated that you're not meeting those goals because you haven't just panned out a little bit and asked yourself, what am I trying to accomplish? What is my vision, and how do I create goals that serve me and help foster the creation of those desired conditions that I want? Same thing for a career. So people get frustrated when they're not making enough or they're not getting promoted within a certain amount of time and all of these other things. But when I ask them, well, what is your vision for your career? The answer is never to be at a certain level by a certain time. They talk about things like professional growth and development, learning, right? They talk about becoming an expert, right? Well, if that's the case, there could be lots of alternative goals. You know, if it may not be the case that you need to be promoted every 2 years. It might be that you consider some lateral transfers to be able to go deep on a topic or on a subject matter to become the subject matter expert, right? These are some alternatives, right? So that's number one. When it comes to goal setting, make sure you pan out, define your overarching vision or what your desired conditions are, whether it's career or home life, right? And make sure your goals support that. Okay, the second thing I want to say about goal setting is January 1st is the worst time to start goals. It's just horrible. It's horrible. Don't do it. I understand for work, that has to happen, right? I mean, people, you go through the annual review process, you set goals, and those are aligned to the company initiative. Fine, okay. But I would say that whether it's personal goals, and again, these can be personal goals in your career, right? Or at home, that spring is a really good time to start something new. Okay, so think of the first day of spring, call me a pagan, but there's something about the renewal of that season that is so conducive to not just starting a goal, but sticking with it because the days get longer, okay? Whether it's health or fitness or career-related stuff, or it could be anything, right? But there is an element to, there's a contrast between starting something in January and having to stick through something through the awful, like the worst of winter, right? Like mid-February, it's so hard to get your butt to the gym, right? It's raining, it's cold, it's snowing outside, and you're supposed to go to the gym. No, that's not happening, right? But in the spring, right? Oh, yeah, it's 6, 10, 8, weeks later. Yeah, I put my shoes on and go out for a walk. It's nice out, right? So same thing with career goals. Even if you had to start your goals in the calendar year, January 1st, spring is a really, really good time to look at those goals again and just do a refresh, right? Rededication, recommit to those goals, and use spring as a springboard to actually carry you through the summer. It's such a much, much better time to start goals in the spring than in the winter. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is what this week's blog post was about, which is the 10X rule, or that's been expanded to thinking ourselves in terms of what is our 10X self. And the 10X rule was written by Grant Cardone. I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly. And this was written a while ago. You guys might be familiar with it. It's a very salesy book, okay? But The underlying idea, as is true for lots of goal-setting strategies, is if you want to be successful, you have to be prepared to do 10x of what everybody else is doing, right? Because what everybody else is doing is average. That is what the going rate is. That's what everybody else is accomplishing. If you want true achievement, you have to be prepared to really, really get out of your comfort zone and push yourself 10x beyond what others are doing. So a lot of goal setting is anchored in this concept of more, right? Get more. You want to be more, you want to get more, you want to take more. It's all more, okay? Which is fine. That's fine. And certainly, hey, look, in my 20s and 30s, I was all about more, right? I wanted more money. I wanted more titles. I wanted more experience. I wanted more. I get it. But again, anchoring yourself in your desired conditions and what an overarching vision is that you might have about your life, if getting more doesn't quite resonate or doesn't support that vision, then would the 10x rule and other strategies like it work for a goal that is less or balanced, right? So what if your goal is to say no more, right? Get comfortable saying no, right? You hear about that. Well, would the 10x rule work for that? Would the 10x rule work for achieving more work-life balance? That's interesting. What if that was your goal? Just as a side note, the whole thing about work-life balance, I'm going to take a left turn here for a minute and then I'll come back. I have always been on the complete opposite side of this issue, that the pendulum has swung on work-life balance. So a few years ago, we had a lot of people talking about work-life balance and how to achieve work-life balance. And these were my strategies. You had female leadership from lots of Fortune 500 companies talking about work-life balance. And at the time, I was like, this is crazy. There's no such thing as a work-life. I wish they would all stop talking about it. It's crazy. Now, I'm reading all kinds of articles and listening to interviews with female leadership talking about stop chasing that crazy myth about work-life balance. It doesn't exist, right? And now I'm like, work-life balance is totally achievable. So I've always been on the opposite of that. But that being said, I'm going to bring it back around now. What if your goal is to achieve more balance, right? That is the desired condition or the vision that you have for your life. Would the 10x rule or strategies like it still help serve for a goal like that? And this is not a goal where it's more. You're not chasing after more. So I decided to do a little experiment. So the author of the 10x rule wrote an article where he basically pulled out the 5 tenets of his book. Okay, so I'm going to read these to you, and they are just going to sound, I'm sure, so familiar, right? This is how you achieve success. This is what, winners do, like all of that stuff. Okay, it's going to be really resonant. So number 1, there is no shortage of success. Number 2, you have to assume responsibility for everything that happens, right? Number 3, you have to take massive action. Number 4, fear is an indicator of where you should act. And 5, criticism is a sign of success. You heard of that one before, right? All right, so these are very salesy, kind of rah types of concepts. And I thought, well, if I am trying to achieve balance, could I run my goals through this model and would it work? So the short story is it does, but in very interesting ways. So the example that I used in the blog post this week is I was at a preschool event for my kid, and I was talking to other parents, and we were talking about kindergarten next year. And there are these parents that said, well, one school that we went to said there's a requirement of parent participation. That's not new, right? But the requirement was that if there were any baked goods involved, that they had to be homemade. They had to be home baked. Really. I like to bake. I do, right? But I thought this was the one that came to me where I thought, that is so ridiculous, okay? I mean, like all the other moms that I was talking to, we were all working moms, and I was a single mom. So I'm like, if there was any baking anything, no, I'm going to the Whole Foods. I'm going to buy something. There's no way I'm baking. So this concept of balance, right, where you have to make a choice, right? The school says one thing, you gotta do this parent participation thing. How are you going to achieve balance? Are you just going to say yes and acquiesce to this requirement, and just it gives you so much anxiety, and you feel all this pressure, and that means you can't like do this other thing that you were willing to do? There's no shortage of success, right? Is there any such thing as too much balance? Too much peace in your life? No, that's crazy, right? We get what we create, right? And because success is something that is created, there's no fixed amount of success, right? You can always foster more balance. You can make decisions every day that help support your goal toward balance. So the first one, that works. Okay, no shortage of success on your balance goal. Okay. Number 2, assume responsibility. So this is an interesting one. Now the author and I have different ideas about the word, like he uses the word responsibility. I use the word accountability, but it's a bottom line. So if I make this choice, right, it is my goal to have more balance. So if I make this choice that I'm just going to go buy some baked goods and I am not going to bake at home, there are going to be repercussions to that. I don't know what they might be, but like when I think about what happens as a result of me just bringing store-bought goods to a school, like I am perfectly willing to accept the responsibility for anything that happens as a result, right? I mean, we have such fear of like little tiny judgments, right? Like, well, what are the other parents going to think when I show up with store-bought goods, right? I don't know. I'm more than happy to talk to them about my decision right there. Yeah, there's no way I was going to bake this week. No way. I had to go to the store and buy it. But I'm so glad that you had time to bake and that you enjoyed it. That's awesome for you. I'm willing to assume responsibility for that. Massive action. So this is really interesting. This is a term that's used a lot, thrown around a lot these days. The definition that I like of massive action is that you keep doing it until you get the result. You don't do it just once and fail, or twice and fail and then give up. Yeah, that's not massive action. Massive action is you keep going. You keep going until you achieve it, right? Massive action is taking action no matter what. And this is something that my own coach has taught me. So a lot of times when you have a goal of less, right? You're trying to take on do some preservation, right? You're trying to seek some balance. Sometimes the massive action is saying no. And you keep saying no until you achieve the balance that you're looking for. Sometimes you might say no and it doesn't work out the way you expected. The answer there is not to stop saying no. It's to find out, well, why did it go wrong? And why did it not turn out the way I had hoped? Well, maybe I can say no in a different way, or I can say no under different circumstances, or I can be more selective, or I can look at the situation. And the answer is not to just go back to saying yes all the time. That is not massive action. Okay. Fear indicates where to act. This is true. We've talked about fear before. Usually, fear is it's something that humans developed in case their lives were in danger, right? Our lives are not in danger anymore when we feel fear a lot of times, right? It's just, we're afraid of judgment, or we're afraid of what people might say. We're afraid of failure. These are not life or death situations, right? And often, most of the time, I'll say most of the time, with the people I coach, fear, wherever they feel fear, that means that's the path you need to go down. I know that was true of me. All right, criticism is a sign of success. This is the only piece of the 10X rule that didn't quite resonate with me, and maybe it's just because of the term criticism. I don't like the idea, or it doesn't sit well with me, that the idea of somebody else criticizing me is a reflection of my own success, is in any way a reflection of me at all, right? Criticism, that's their thing, right? So and that's something that even in the workplace, when you think about criticism, outright criticism is more a reflection of the other person than you, right? Constructive criticism is totally different. Okay, so what Grant Cardone's talking about in the 10X rule is strict criticism. And what I'm saying is I don't agree that that's a reflection of my success or your success. I think that's just more of a reflection of that person and has nothing to do with your success. I want to make sure that it's clear that that is very different than constructive criticism in the workplace, which is it's about building, right? Constructing. So you're providing a criticism in order to build something for someone, with someone, right? So that's what the constructive part is. And that's totally different than what the author's talking about in the 10X rule. So, 4 out of 5, right? So it was an interesting exercise. I would encourage everybody to think about their goals as it relates to what are you ultimately trying to accomplish in your career and in your home life, and then create goals that can be directly linked to that overarching vision, okay? Go ahead and start goals in the spring instead of the winter. Or if you have work goals that start in January, that's fine, you got to do that. But take the opportunity in the spring to revisit, refresh, recommit. Okay, think about it in terms of a clean slate. Whatever you've done from January to March or April, it is what it is, but take that opportunity and use it as a springboard. And then finally, think of goals less in terms of more, always chasing more, if that type of a goal doesn't serve your overarching vision. If it if it doesn't help support creating your desired conditions, I would flip the goals or these goal processes to run, balance goals through them, see how that works and how that feels, and see what you come up with. Okay, so if you're a part of the Skill Masters group, you'll be getting the tool that helps walk you through this whole exercise. So you can take it with an existing goal. People who are part of my Skill Masters group, the way that we go through any of these exercises every week this is not theoretical. Okay, this is not just an idea to go, oh, that's kind of interesting, and then put it aside, do anything with, right? My whole thing is you have to put these skills into practice. And number 2 is that you don't wait. Don't wait until the perfect opportunity comes up to try these new skills. You have a whole host of examples and experiences up until the very point in your life that you opened up that email from me and opened up that tool. Take an example from the past, run it through the exercise, run it through my models, see what you discover, see what you learn, see what's unearthed. And that's a wonderful, safe way to practice these skills before you have to do it live and you feel kind of under the gun and on the spot to do it. You will have practiced it, right? So those are some things that I want people to think about. If you want to join Skill Masters, totally free, go to aureliancoaching.com, the bar at the top, go ahead and sign up and we'll slot you right in. So I hope this was helpful for people. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them on comments or shoot me an email, nicole.littman@aureliancoaching.com. I will see you guys same time, same place next week. Bye-bye now.